Hey, what is going on, everybody? It's Ben Morgan of the Fins Up Network. We're previewing Dolphins Jets today. The second time that we were playing the Jets within the last 4 weeks. We won 34-13 back on week 12, which was obviously Black Friday. Before we get into that, did anyone watch Hard Knocks on Tuesday? I'm recording this on Wednesday, and I will tell you what, if you haven't watched it yet, if you got it on the DVR, maybe give it a little bit of time, because having that game on Monday night, turning around, watching that Tuesday night, you know the phrase, hey, too soon, too soon. That was too soon. To reopen that scar that had started to form and just reopen that and just throw a little bit of salt in that again, that one hurt. But that's what we're here to do today, is to move forward, focus on that next opponent. So that's what we're going to do. We feel that sense of urgency now following that game, obviously. So we're going to be talking keys to victory, top matchups to watch. We're going to talk some latest roster news as well. Before we jump into that, though, for this week's final preview and prediction video, I want to answer viewer questions once again. So any questions you have regarding the team, the matchup against the Jets, go ahead, drop them into the comments. We'll be recording that video either likely Friday night or Saturday morning, but we will be getting that one out later this week. But I talked about latest roster moves because, yes, from that Monday night game, the injuries continued to mount, and this one was big. Connor Williams officially placed on IR with that torn ACL. Jonotthan Harrison was signed to the active roster, and Matt Skura was signed to the Miami Dolphins practice squad. Now, if you're unfamiliar with them, we'll give you a real quick rundown. Harrison, he's 32 years old. He played 6 years in the NFL between 2014 and 19. He played with the Colts and the Jets. However, he has not seen NFL game action since 2019. With that said, no game action, but has spent time in some training camps and on some practice squads each of the last 3 years. And then Matt Skura, that might be a familiar name for some of you diehards out there that pay attention to a lot of offensive line play. I know there's a lot of them out there. So, yeah, you probably know who he is, but he last played for the LA Rams in 2022. He was on our roster back in training camp. I believe it was in 2021 before being released. So these are the guys that are taking the roster spot that's open from Connor Williams, and then a spot on the practice squad as well. They're your new options that are at center outside of Liam Eichenberg, who has been the guy to take those snaps at center when Connor Williams has missed time this season. However, we're going to talk about it here in a second. Liam Eichenberg popped up on Wednesday's injury report, so these additions could be more important than what they probably lead on to believe, at least so far anyways. And Mike McDaniel also did say that Lester Cotton has been taking some reps at center as well. So some options regardless. I talked about the injuries. I'm actually going to go into more depth on the injury report in that final preview and prediction video. Wednesday's practice was a walkthrough, so any injury designations were actually estimates at that point in time. But it was a lengthy list. Let's just put it that way. The likes of Devon Achane, who popped up, I believe, with a toe. Teron Armstead was on it as a DNP. Liam Eichenberg popped up with the calf. Tyreek obviously on it. X popped up on it with the hip. Robert Hunt remained on it. Raheem Mostert, he was given a veteran day off. But all those guys were DNP designations. Like I said, we'll dive into more of all that stuff and what it means later in the week. Let's jump into one of the keys to victory right away. I want to talk about the Jets here because since the Jets and the Dolphins played in week 12, the Jets played one more game with Tim Boyle at quarterback. If you remember, he started against us. It didn't go very well. It didn't go very well the next week either. They lost 13-8 in a thriller against the Atlanta Falcons. They proceeded to cut Tim Boyle. They moved Zach Wilson back to the starting quarterback. Last week, they go out and just they footballed us the same way that football footballed us with the Titans game. Football footballed the Texans in that game against the Jets. They beat up on them 30-6. Now, offensively in that game, Zach Wilson, he's good for one of these games every once in a while. He throws for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, kind of the opposite of what we saw from him, why we saw him get benched earlier in the year. He did take 4 sacks. But the passing game was on for him. They only ran for 79 yards on 26 carries, so that's 3 yards per carry. So the bulk of their offense did run through the passing game, and that receiving game came from Garrett Wilson. 9 catches, 108 yards, and Breece Hall, who went 8 for 86 and a touchdown. Tight ends Tyler Conklin and Jeremy Ruckert combined for 7 catches for 94 yards. So that's where the bulk of their offensive production came in that breakout game against the Texans. But defensively, allowing the Texans, who've been pretty good and surprising on offense this year, allowing them to 6 points, they absolutely took it to them. CJ Stroud and then Davis Mills actually came in at the end of that game when Stroud had his concussion symptoms. They combined to go 11 for 28 for 95 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, but took 5 sacks, and then they didn't get really too much going on the ground. 81 yards on 19 carries, so a little over 4 per carry. But if we go back to that last matchup, Week 12, Dolphins-Jets, the Black Friday game, it's essentially 10-0. We're about to head into halftime. Tua throws the interception. They house it. It's the pick six. It's 10-6. They miss the extra point. Now, obviously, you know how this plays out. We throw the second interception, essentially in a minute time span, gives the Jets the Hail Mary opportunity. We know how that, in a weirdest way ever, football once again, works to our advantage. Jevon Holland gets the 99-yard interception return for a touchdown. But those 6 points that we gave up on the pick six were the only points that we allowed as a team, and we allowed them on offense until there was 4 minutes and 37 seconds left on the game clock. Basically a garbage time touchdown. We were up 27-6 at that time. Now, I know that we're facing a different quarterback this time around. It's Zach Wilson rather than Tim Boyle, so we're not comparing apples to apples. But it's not like the Jets, and specifically on offense, have killed it this year with Zach Wilson. Like I said, he was benched for a reason. So if we can limit our turnovers, especially those turnovers that either produce points instantly with a pick six or a fumble recovery for a touchdown, or set you up with your offense to have to go a very short distance, that will go a huge way in ensuring victory against a Jets offense. Like I said, that has struggled the majority of this season. And if wrapping this point up, we look at Tua had a pretty solid game outside of those 2 throws late in the first half. 21 of 30, 243 yards, and a touchdown. If you remember, that was the game where both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle went for over 100 yards. And man, they were the offense, at least through the passing game. Raheem Mostert did well. He flirted with 100 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. But Hill and Waddle combined for 17 of Tua's 21 receptions. So that's funneling it through them quite a bit. We'll see how that plays out this week. But the matchup that I want to watch is our cornerbacks against Garrett Wilson. And I instantly, right away, I wanted to say, well, the Jets are probably going to try to control the ball. We should probably try to match up against Breece Hall. However, Monday night happened, and we just watched DeAndre Hopkins carve us up to the tune of 7 catches, 124 yards, and 1 touchdown on a night where he was the offense. He was the primary guy. We knew he was the one to stop, but yet we couldn't do a damn thing about it, especially at the end of that game. Derrick Henry, the one we all thought we would really have to stop, limited to 34 yards on 17 carries. Yeah, he had the 2 touchdowns that they were both pretty short. Even a guy like Tyjae Spears could have done that. 34 yards on 17 carries. We handled him. We got the job done against him. But yet when Tennessee was passing the ball, DeAndre Hopkins just out there running free. So now you got to wonder if instead of trying to take the air out of the ball and controlling the clock with a guy like Breece Hall, did the Jets try to maybe take a page from the Titans playbook? Did they see something there and try to copy what the Titans did with DeAndre Hopkins, and they try to do it with their stud wide receiver in Garrett Wilson? So if we go back to the first game against the Jets, Wilson goes 7 catches, 44 yards, and a touchdown. Not a great stat line. Obviously, the garbage touchdown. But keep in mind that was with Tim Boyle at quarterback as well. So maybe the Jets, like I said, maybe they saw something in the film. Maybe they're going to try to see how we struggled to cover with DeAndre Hopkins and try to exploit us in the same way. Maybe that is what their game plan sort of pivots to. We'll see, but I would assume if we go back to last week, especially those last 2 possessions on defense where we give up the 15 points in just a matter of minutes, you would think that would maybe serve as a little bit of a wake-up call for the secondary, for the Dolphins defense in general. But I am looking for the secondary, mainly Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey, show that veteran leadership, take this personal, go out there, completely shut down their number one. We just saw DeAndre Hopkins carve us up. Don't let their number one, don't let Garrett Wilson do the same thing. Don't let him duplicate DeAndre Hopkins' performance. So that's one of the matchups that I'm going to be curious to watch, along with, obviously, like I said, do they opt to go through the air like the Titans did, or are they going to try to keep time of possession going their way, hold on to the ball, not let the Dolphins offense go out there, try to run things through Breece Hall? We'll see, but those are what I'm keeping an eye on. But like I said, leading up to that final preview prediction video, I want to hear from you. Any questions you'd like to be addressed in that video, go ahead and put them in the comments. We'll get to as many as possible. But that is what I have got for today, Miami Dolphins fans. Until that next video, fins up.